7:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I will share that. Ask everyone please to join us in the pledge. As soon as I get somebody to say that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're back. So,
Ask Bob to take roll call.
okay. So, Supervisor Mullen,
Here.
Trustee Reedy,
Here.
Trustee Chapman,
Here.
Trustee Allen,
Here.
Trustee Signorella,
Here.
and then I have Assessor Trowbridge
Here.
and Highway Commissioner Young.
Here.
And Clerk Claren is here.
Okay.
And then in the gallery, I have, I'm going to go through Grace Anderson, Diane Hewitt, Claire Goldenberg, Jim Vonderen, Bill Green, and John DeCanto. And, okay. And then I have Chris, let's see, is she still there? Okay, I see, there's Christy McGovern and Debbie Polowitz. Did I miss anybody else?
Did you get Scott?
Me, Bob.
And there's Scott's back. Okay, there we go.
That looks like my list. Okay. That brings us to public comment for the evening for the regular meeting. Via the form, I'll show you all that we did not receive any public comment via the form for the regular meeting. And I will ask if anybody on the call has anything to offer for public comment. Hearing none, we'll move forward to the next item, which is approval of the February 10th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I do have one note. I think Mike is noted as present and absent in the last.
Sorry.
So it just need to be taken off of the top part. Does anyone else have any comments on the minutes? Kathy, you're trying to talk?
Yes.
There.
Darn it. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Under the audit of expenditures, in the first motion, it shows that all of us voted aye, but I believe Trustee Reedy and Trustee Allen were absent at the meeting.
Oh, okay. So sorry,
Probably
that's a,
carried
we'll
over
fix those
typo.
up. Yes, that's correct. That'll be noted.
Anything else on the minutes? So then, Sean, would you like to amend your motion to approve the minutes as amended by the comments this evening?
Yeah, I'll make a motion as amended by Kathy's comments.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And I'll ask Bob for roll call.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
Trustee Chapman,
Yes.
Trustee Allen,
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Signorella,
Yes.
and Supervisor Mullen.
Yes. All right, that moves us to the next item, which is discussion and approval of the FY 2022 Budget and Appropriations Ordinance, number 2021-1 for the Town and General Assistance Funds. Is there a motion to approve the budget for Town and General Assistance?
I move to approve the fiscal year 2022 budget and appropriations ordinance 2021-1, town and general assistance.
I will second that.
So the ordinance is as presented previously with one change. It is line 10-1625 for IT systems and computers. I'll talk a little bit more about this in my report, but we initiated having some conversations about managed services for IT, as the person who currently is supporting our IT needs may no longer be able to support us. So we started the process of identifying what options we have, and one would be having just a full managed services. And since the same person works with the highway, we were looking at possibly covering both, like everyone who's currently on campus, highway and town. So I added went from 5,000 in that line to 65,000. If we go to a managed service, it's a monthly routine charge. And based on the initial estimate we got, that's probably how it could be ultimately. That way we have it lined out so that that's the direction that ultimately the township goes in. Then we have it allocated in the budget already. So that's the only difference from what we had discussed coming out of the budget workshop and had passed for the tentative budget. To address the comments made on the budget related to general assistance in particular, we have to also be able to avoid things like tax objections, which is a lawsuit that would be filed against us if there's too much money set aside sitting in reserves, or too much budgeted that we end up having to the amount that's actually expended when you compare what's levied can put you at risk of having lawsuits filed against us. So there is a balancing act of providing a realistic estimate to people who understand how much we will and have in the past spent on general assistance. We generally underspend on general assistance, not because it's not understood or known that we have these services, but because it's difficult for some people to also come to us. So over the last few years, we've done some outreach. We've worked with different partners to try and expand how many people come in, and we have seen a great deal of expansion. We've also significantly increased the amount of assistance and grants that are offered through general and emergency assistance. But the reality is we can't set aside far more than actually gets spent, because that is not sound financial management. And it's not properly communicating the budget to the public. So I look at multiple years of spend. I look at how much increase we may potentially see based on the plan and the outreach that we have already done, and look at the increases or changes to the general and emergency assistance guidelines that are issued year to year, and then make the estimate from there of what we will spend. At any time, we can move money from the town fund to the general fund, to the general assistance fund, if it becomes necessary. That is always on the table. We can. That's not part of the budgeting process. That's actually a movement we can make through the year if we find that it's necessary. If we have a run on expenditures, but it varies widely from year to year. So we do our best to try and provide a realistic estimate. So that's what you see in the budget that's proposed currently, just to get some background on how general assistance works.
So Mary Jo, to put it in plain person's terms, or to people who don't understand the budgeting process, we've never turned anyone down, to my knowledge, because we ran out of money. And there is a process by which, particularly the general assistance, because of events that we can't foresee today, that we can put more money in there. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
And the guidelines that overall that general assistance and emergency assistance function under are related to the township code and the public aid code. And there is a manual that is used statewide that is produced by the township officials of Illinois that provide all the guidance that goes into how you qualify for assistance and how grants and vouchers are provided to people who are in need. So we set some guidelines, which I'm actually going to talk about at the in a later agenda item, that say what your income level is to be able to qualify and how much money we will be able to provide. And our township is about double what most other DuPage townships are in what we provide. So we are constantly working on this and evolving it. And it's something that was really important to me over the last few years to every year revisit and not just budget, but update the guidance based on what we are seeing people come in for. And that's just background on that. Does anyone have any questions or comments or discussion related to the town and general assistance budget? It cut out, Kathy. No. Your mic's just not staying connected, I think.
No.
There, yeah. Yep.
So I am having a little audio video, what AV problems. I can't hear you when you can hear me with my switches. So I was just going to add that we did discuss at the budget meeting also the idea of potential rental issues given COVID, given the state of events tied to relief packaging and forecasting into the year, and the ability that we might have, or the option that might come forward to have to look to increase that as well. And so I believe we decided to conservatively budget for it, not knowing when that impact potentially was going to hit our community, if it would hit. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that we did talk about the current state of affairs in regards to COVID, the impact, and in the budget process when we were, evaluating this. And so I still have to say, like I did in the budget meeting, I agree with the numbers that you would put forward.
And as to reserve, you need to have in reserve typically a full year's worth of spend available should something go completely awry and you are no longer able to get your tax revenue in. We go for a very long period with no revenue seen month to month. Our last disbursement typically happens in September, and then it's the following June before we get a significant disbursement of tax revenue. So we operate based on the money that came in over like 3 disbursements essentially when the taxes are divvied out. And then we have a long period before we have to, before we get, our banks are kind of replenished. So there's a little bit of balancing act there as well. But there's also management reserve so that if we are unable to receive our tax revenue or something emergent were to happen, we are responsible for emergency actions and have the ability to provide a different style of emergency assistance should that happen. That is what the reserves are intended for, so that we can continue to function without revenue for a period of time. So if there's no other discussion on this, I will turn it over to Bob for a roll call vote.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
Trustee Chapman,
Yes.
Trustee Allen,
Yes.
Trustee Signorella,
Yes.
Supervisor Mullen.
Yes. So FY22 Budget and Appropriations Ordinance 2021-1 is approved. That moves us into discussion and approval of the FY 2022 budget ordinance for the road district. Is there a motion to approve that budget?
I move to approve the FY 2022 budget ordinance for the road district.
I'll second that.
Okay. Ed, do you want to introduce anything about this? You're muted. You're muted still. Okay.
I apologize. Yeah, it's the only thing that's changed from the budget hearing days is the workman's comp has been reduced somewhat, reflecting the payment that we just processed in tonight's meeting. Other than that, all of the numbers are the same. And I think it's a conservative budget and we'll be able to maintain it, what we say. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Anything for Ed?
Nope.
Okay, then I will ask Bob for a roll call vote on this, please.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
trustee Chapman,
Yes.
trustee Allen,
Yes.
trustee Signorella,
Yes.
supervisor Muller.
Yes.
Thank you.
FY22 budget ordinance for the road district is approved. That moves us into discussion and potential action to set the agenda for the annual meeting. In your board packet, I did prepare a draft agenda for discussion tonight, assuming that the meeting would be as typically mandated on the second Tuesday of April. I had a discussion with Carrie Lynn this afternoon, and there is an executive order that is on its way that will allow us to postpone if needed, because currently under phase 4 restrictions, we can only have a gathering of up to 50 in one room. And the executive order will enable the annual meeting to take place sometime by the end of the calendar year, is what's in process right now. So I think the discussion we need to have is first, do we want to continue to move forward, assuming that we can have the annual meeting in April? Knowing that if more than 50 people show up, then that puts us at risk of being in violation of current orders. Do we want to count on vaccinations going really great and being able to expand the amount of people and have no concerns about the size of the meeting later in the year? And knowing that for at least some of us, for sure, that hands off to someone else to handle. So I want to get
Mary Jo,
Yeah, go ahead.
did she say what the process would be if we were to adopt minutes with the plan tonight? And if that ordinance goes through, would we need to have a special meeting to reestablish that potential, or what would we need to do?
I think it would be the same as last year, where we simply postponed it and then continue to have the discussion here. And then in the regular meeting or a special meeting, if need be, we would be able to set the new date and the agenda then. So we could set it tonight and know that we may need to postpone it, but I don't think we're getting out of phase 4 in the next month. So we're going to be at the 50-person limit. So I think it's a valuable conversation to still have tonight to make sure how we feel about the size limit.
Well, in the past, we've had more than 50. So I think from the highway perspective, I think it would make sense rather than publish an agenda that we, in all likelihood, we won't get to until sometime in the future. I think we get some people's hopes up so that they intend to attend. I think it'd be best to postpone it.
Can we officially postpone it though, or do we have to wait for the ordinance?
So that's a good point. She said the executive order is coming any time, but yeah, so what we would have to do is if we didn't do it tonight, we'd have to, the executive order didn't come out in the next week, we'd have to have a special meeting to set it, or we set it now and simply postpone it when it happens, when the executive order comes out.
I guess my feeling is if we were to set a special meeting for this discussion topic in 2 weeks, which still is 2 weeks at minimum, 2 weeks prior to the 13th of April. And I know it's, we don't like to schedule meetings just to schedule meetings, but I feel like this has a potential to go.
We have a special meeting to set already anyway. We
okay,
so set a special meeting to have the DuPage Federation for Human Services Reform give us the presentation, and Amy told me this week that they're on track to deliver this Monday for the final report, so that we could, but the week of March 22nd, we could have the special meeting to get the recommendations and the report out from them. So we would be planning to schedule one anyway.
Okay, and I just want to be clear that if we were to table this tonight, we would be within the structure of the town hall directive to wait until the third week of March to set an agenda. We would be okay with that.
Right.
And by then we should know the executive order
Or not.
or have some more guidance if we haven't moved out of phase 4.
Right. Yeah. I think it sounds like she has, because I think TOI asked her to put together the language. So I think they have the language in front of the governor already to issue an executive order. So I'm really hoping he tends to do those EOs on Friday, I think. So I'm hoping that it's this Friday that would come out. But that happened last year too, where we thought it was imminent and it took an extra week or so to come out. So, and there's little harm in setting it and then postponing it. But I think to the point that we don't want to set it up and be like, just kidding, and pull it back, that gives us a false impression. So to the agenda, that was the draft agenda. The only additional item from the typical annual meeting agenda is a presentation on the mental health report. I think it would be good for us to be able to talk to that at the annual meeting, whenever it may be held. So there's no required action on the agenda item right now. I'm hearing from a couple of you that waiting until the special meeting is preferable. Mike, Sean, Tony, do you guys have any specific feelings on this right now?
Not really, one way or another. I'll go with what the rest of the board agrees with. It's kind of a coin toss which way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I was going to say I'll agree with the group. I think Kathy's comments were right on.
Okay, then my suggestion is then I can add this to the agenda for the special meeting. And we can look at the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th, I believe are open for DuPage Federation. If those work for everybody, we can plan the special meeting and make sure that this is one of the agenda items.
Do we want to set that meeting under other business, and just in case there's anything else on the agenda tonight that needs to be postponed?
Sure, that's fine. All right, then I'll wrap up our discussion on that one and move forward into.
No action taken.
Yeah, no action taken. Next agenda item is discussion and potential action on the PACE annual agreement for Ride DuPage services. Last year was weird for PACE. Ride DuPage was all over the place. So the agreement that you guys received in your packet is the same standard language that's always in it, and the appendix that identifies the cost allocations between Naperville Township, Lisle Township, and Wheatland Township are set to be the same as they were the previous year. The numbers were very erratic last year for the ridership between the various townships, and it very much month to month was typically we're fairly constant in how it divides up, a percentage here or there between us and Naperville Township or Wheatland Township. And there's just wild swings because a lot of people were staying home, and then some people started coming out more. And we had several discussions between all the townships in the city and decided ultimately that we're probably on pace to get back into a normal situation where we were 2 years ago in 2019. And we'll just continue to use the same allocation between the 3 townships in the city of Naperville, rather than try and use numbers that are probably not very predictive of what this year will look like. So that's what's been sent out to you guys. With that, I'll ask if there's a motion to approve the PACE annual agreement for Ride DuPage.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Tony,
I'll defer to Tony. I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on the agreement?
Mary Jo, I just want to make
Nope.
sure I understand you clearly that we're using 2019 percentage numbers
Right,
because of the interruption of services based in COVID,
right.
and everyone has agreed to that. All the partners. Okay.
Yeah. We had, our last meeting was last Thursday, and all of the supervisors from Naperville Township and Wheatland Township, and then the organizers, the leads for City of Naperville were all on it together and all agreed.
And if memory serves me right, the 2019 numbers as well as the 2018 numbers, those were done on the kind of reformulation, the deep dive
Right,
that Jim and everyone had done. So they were very solid numbers. It wasn't just a guess. So
right,
just so everybody knows, right, that these were very much, the accuracy had been checked on the
Yeah.
2019 percentages.
right. And so it's data that Naperville Township aggregates out of the PACE system. And then I do a check of it and I produce the, they assemble all the data, put it together, and I'm the dork who puts it into a spreadsheet and comes up with how it all breaks down between the township. So there's multiple eyes on it in the process too. Any other questions or discussion? Then I will ask for Bob to take roll call vote, please.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
trustee Chapman,
Yes.
trustee Signorella,
Yes.
Supervisor Mullen.
Yes,
You forgot about me.
And I forgot, it's my turn, forget Mr. Allen. Sorry, I got all the names written across the piece of paper. I just forgot to say Allen.
Yes, I
Sean.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
awesome. So then we have approved the PACE annual agreement for right-to-pay services for this year. And that moves us into the next agenda item, which is discussion and potential action on the CERT agreement. So we haven't had to take action for a couple of years on the CERT agreement because I had done a multi-year agreement with Milton Township. And this year is the first year back into single year for now. And I think doing single year is appropriate right now because I did reduce the amount of contribution they're asking for because they have some excess reserves from last year because they didn't spend nearly as much because they weren't able to do a lot of the trainings and in-person exercises that they typically would do. So what they're doing is giving everyone 50% discount essentially on our contributions to CERT. But again, otherwise the CERT agreement is the same as it has been in the past with a reduction in how much money we'll contribute for this year only. With that, I'll ask if there is a motion to approve the CERT agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve the CERT agreement.
I second.
Any questions or discussion on the agreement? Hearing none, I will ask Bob to take roll call vote on the CERT agreement.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
trustee Chapman,
Yes.
trustee Allen,
Yes.
trustee Signorella,
Yes.
supervisor Mullen.
Yes. CERT agreement is approved. That moves us into the next item, which is discussion of and potential action on a proclamation for Conservation Foundation's River Sweep 2021. So I was contacted by the Conservation Foundation. They're asking all of the townships and local municipalities in the area to help recognize the DuPage County River Sweep that is in May. It is their 30th anniversary of doing this event, so they're trying to make a bigger deal out of it. I love the idea. The flood girl in me is very excited to support this effort, so I was hoping that you guys would be too. And the proclamation itself, here I can share what that actually looks like. It's enormous on my screen. Let me make it readable. The proclamation states, whereas the County of DuPage, through stormwater management departments and municipalities, townships, and park districts, recognizes ongoing stream cleaning and restoration as essential for the preservation of waterways throughout DuPage County and northeastern Illinois. And whereas DuPage County River Sweep is a countywide stream cleanup and restoration event organized by the Conservation Foundation, held in cooperation with the American Rivers National River Cleanup. And whereas the purpose of the River Sweep is to encourage citizens and volunteer groups to help sweep our rivers clean by picking up debris in and along our waterways and by participating in stream restoration projects. And whereas stream cleaning efforts have been successful with more than 13,800 volunteers, removing nearly 285 tons of debris from DuPage County streams since 1991. And whereas the township supervisor and trustees of Lisle Township congratulate the Conservation Foundation on 36 successful years for this event, and now therefore be it proclaimed that all residents of Lisle Township are encouraged to make a difference in the quality of water in the area, and are further urged to support and participate in River Sweep 2021 on Saturday, May 15th, 2021. They also provided us some outreach materials to help spread the word. So if you guys are supportive of this, we will put this on our Facebook, put it on our website, encourage people to participate in the River Sweep. So that's the background. With that, I will ask if there is a motion to.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
I'll
off,
second.
Supervisor.
I can second that.
Okay.
It's just such a good idea.
Yeah, I was really glad
Yeah,
that
it's
we put the
great.
townships on this too. That was a really nice effort.
Mary Jo,
Mhm.
there is a typo in your fourth whereas.
Oh no.
I think it's the fourth one. It says whereas steam instead of whereas
Oh.
stream.
Oh, you know what? That's their template too. I should go call her. I'll let her know too.
Right, 1, 2, 3, the
Got it.
fourth one down. You see it?
Yep, I
Okay.
got it. I adjusted it. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah,
Wow.
I just didn't want you to publish it with that typo.
You know, when you look at the same thing over and over and you stop seeing those things.
So I'll make the motion for a revised version.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I will second that.
Does anyone have any questions or discussion on this?
Yeah, Mary Jo, when is this gonna take a place? I don't know if you said that or not.
It is May
Think.
15th. It's a Saturday.
All right, very good. Yeah, great idea. Thank you.
And Mary Jo, are we going to have this on our website? So Lisle
Yeah, they
Township
sent a really
residents.
nice flyer that I'll use the flyer, and then there's some other materials. So we'll put it on our lobby. We'll put that up on the website, and we'll put it up on our Facebook.
And I would encourage other businesses and corporations in Lisle Township to get involved as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So then I think there's no further discussion. I'll ask Bob to take a roll call vote to approve the
Trustee Reed?
proclamation.
Yes.
Trustee Chapman,
Yes,
trustee Allen,
Yes,
trustee Signorella,
Yes.
and Supervisor Mullen.
Yes. All righty. So the proclamation is approved. Thank you, guys. That brings us to discussion of and potential action on the change order for the assessor's office reception area. I just want to kind of mention that while we had a good design starting off with the build out for John's new offices, there's a little bit of design build to this as well, as some of the details are being worked out with the owner. So there are these little change orders that are happening throughout as we're kind of refining the detailed scope. But John, do you want to talk to kind of how this came about?
Yes, there was actually in the drawing, and we did not catch it. The architect we have a two-stage area for greeting the customers, or after we initially greet the customers, we have an area where we can consult. We have a high area and a handicapped accessible area. And unfortunately, when he was drawing the plans, he did not include the windows in those two areas. So we saw the chairs drawn in but they were actually facing a wall. So when we went in there, we saw that, and we got those cut in, and we were going to put windows in. On top of that, in our old building, we had slider windows for the receptionist. And in light of COVID and security issues, we decided to go with a higher grade glass. The benefit of this was we were able to actually use that slider glass in the back of the reception office, so there's no loss. And my hope is that we may be able to get, because of COVID, we may be able to get federal funding to reimburse these expenses.
Oh, cool.
And I think also part of this, John, too, is that there's additional coding and treatment for safety and protection for everyone who's working up front as well, correct?
Correct.
So is there a motion?
Is there a price on the change order, or what
Yes.
kind of money are we talking about?
It's $1,873. And it was part of the audited checks, so that if this is approved, it's in the audit ready to go. Otherwise, we can pull it if not.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the change order for the assessor's office reception area.
I will second that.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I will ask Bob to take roll call.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
trustee Chapman,
Yes.
trustee Allen,
Yes.
trustee Signorella, you're on mute.
Hear me? I said yes.
Yes, thank you. And Supervisor Muller.
Yes. Okay. So the change order for the assessor's office reception area is approved. And that moves us into discussion on posting monthly expenditures online. This is a follow-up from what Tony brought up last month about making our expenditures more transparent and accessible to the public. And I sent a spreadsheet of kind of what the audit check looks like, that has kind of all the expenditures listed that's used for the audit. I wanted to have a little discussion on what you guys would like to see in a monthly report that's posted. There's a couple things that can be added to this, which is more similar to the full annual list of expenditures that we typically post, which Bill just ran. Like the fund code and account would be on there. We can include the memo, which usually gives a little more information about what the expenditure was about. But there's a couple considerations that I wanted us to talk about in terms of how far do we go back? Is this a going forward thing? Do we post this year's full year and then just from here on out monthly post at the following our meeting? And then there is some privacy and sensitive information that's on this sometimes, particularly with our GA clients. So we would need to be able to at least redact names from there. And sometimes for emergency assistance in the memo, there'll be a name, so we have to redact that as well. But that's really, in looking through some of our reports, those are the only things I see that we'd have to redact would be those clients. But those are my, like, just going through this and trying to look at what we have already kind of put together and what would be useful for people. Those are my initial thoughts that we need to kind of discuss a little bit. So just want to open it up to you guys in terms of what kind of information do you want to make sure we make available, and then any other considerations we really need to make sure that we're not putting something out there that is privacy or sensitive.
I just first want to thank Supervisor Mary Jo Mullen and Bill Green, especially for taking our comments and putting them into action. It's really to the benefit of all of our residents and our taxpayers that we can be more transparent and accountable than we've already have been. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You think about it and you compare what we do right now, Lisle Township, compared to the other townships in DuPage County, we're really the standard for transparency, accountability. And this going one step further is even more amazing. So thank you very much.
Sure. Other thoughts about what we should be, additional information from just the typical, beyond the typical audit report? So if we add the fund code, so it's clear what account and who's which, overall fund it comes from, and the memo, is that sufficient for you guys? Do you feel that that's what you're looking for, Tony?
I think that would be more than sufficient. And I think if you put in for the general assistance, rather than listing out the individual expenditures, if you just lump those together, one, I don't think it's that expensive. I mean, that much money in relation to the totals. And I would hesitate to even get just disclosing even the amount of money that's an individual. I just don't think that's appropriate. Right. And so assistance in general, like, so GA is the only one where the person's name shows up necessarily, and depending on what they get in as the vendor. Everything else is kind of a little different because it's under, the vendor is the apartment complex that we write the check to, the utility company. There's a lot of vendors that it goes under. Right. So then it becomes a little bit more difficult to tell and trace back to a particular person, and it's not really exposing personally identifiable information, except for maybe the memo, and maybe those we just have to make sure we black out the memo line so that's not traced to a person or anything. But any other thoughts on this? I just wanted to kind of bring this back to you guys and see if this is what you're looking for, Tony, and this makes sense to everybody.
It does make sense, and I could appreciate us wanting to make sure that we're being protective of individuals and personal information while we do this, and still try and be transparent.
That's a big learning for me too from federal government times. PII is a huge deal. So, and especially having worked for Homeland Security.
I could relate in my job too.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes. All right, then we will move forward with this. Is everyone okay with the idea of posting this year's full list of vendors and expenses that we typically do, and then we post the monthly one from here on out? Does that make sense to everyone?
I think that's good if we had the bandwidth to do that, starting with this year.
Yeah, okay. So we'll make that the plan.
Did the camera go away on you guys?
No, but you're frozen.
Okay.
Okay, so we can wrap up the discussion. Thank you for your feedback. Just wanted to check in with you guys on that. And then the last of our new business items, I guess, is the update of general assistance and emergency assistance guidelines. So I did do a review of all of 2020. And initially in 2019, when we last updated this, the goal was that we meet all utility needs that are expressed to us, and we're meeting people more than halfway on rental assistance as a way of trying to do better and continue to address the need in the township. And where we stand today is, out of all of the cases, we had 136 total cases in assistance last year. 100%, so there's a bunch of zeros down here. Those are people who just didn't apply for utility assistance. They applied for other types of assistance. Only 3 people had utility bills that we could not fully meet. And that was because one of them was $1,300 and the other 2 were well over $2,000. So we didn't fully meet those, but that leaves us in pretty good shape on utilities. And then there's still some scatter here, but there's a lot of cases, which this is pretty new on the rental assistance side, where we are able to meet 100% of the rental need. A couple where people were about 3 months overdue, where we have some lower outliers, but otherwise we're up here in terms of an individual coming in and capping out on assistance before their full rental need is met. So I'm proposing 2 items, and Bob, I'll just send these to you for the record. Okay. There's no action required. Tony, for your benefit, for emergency and assistance and general assistance for these guidelines specifically, These are under the purview of the supervisor and do not require board action. So these assistance guidelines go further and give the detailed specifics for how Lisle Township enacts the general assistance and emergency assistance programs, and supplement and supersede portions of the Township Officials of Illinois manual that we all use for EA and GA. So for general assistance, which is a monthly stipend for people who are typically individuals who are applying for SSDI and kind of in a holding pattern because that process can take such a long time. We're increasing that assistance from $425 to $450. This is currently, the other townships offer $200 to $400 a month. So we're upping this. We came up a couple years ago to 400 and have steadily been increasing it from there. In the rare case that a family were to qualify, those are very, general assistance is completely dictated in terms of a qualification by state code. But if a family were to meet it, there's a table here as well for what the family would be able to qualify for based on the number of people in the household. So that will go into effect on April 1st with the new fiscal year for general assistance. And then for emergency assistance, the major changes I'm making are I've removed the 5-year maximum that we did hit the 5-year max in the last year and a half. And we had a couple people who came in, and because of COVID, we still served them. But the 5-year maximum hasn't really had an impact. A lot of the people who were hitting 5-year weren't coming in every year, as I think originally was suspected. They would come in and maybe 2 years later come in again, and then another year later come in, and then a couple years later come in. So it wasn't, I think, the concern that was originally had when the 5-year maximum was put on. I haven't seen that really be a problem. So rather than harm somebody because they can't come in for assistance, I'd rather just lift that requirement and ensure that people have access to services they need. So I've removed that. And then coming down to the total maximums, I did increase for foods and for gas. I increased the allowable amount that I did vouchers for people. And I've also increased the income eligibility. We had set it at 175% of the federal poverty rate 2 years ago. And I've increased that to 200% of poverty based on a lot of other guidance and standards that are out there related to these types of financial assistance programs. And looking at the number of people that are coming in and the range of the range of income levels that we were seeing. So the blue here is the range for number of people in a household, what the income was for everyone who came in at 1 person in a household, 2 people in a household, 3 people in a household. And then the red is where you can see that we are capping out, especially on these lower numbers of households. So by increasing it to 200% of poverty, there's a little more of a gap, so that we'll probably be able to serve some more people who do need help. So, the reality is that translates to, for 1 person in a household, $2,000 a month. It's still not a very significant in any way income level. And then for the amount of maximum assistance, I've increased this as well from starting, it was 700 in the past for 1 person. I increased this to 750. And once you got up to 7, it used to be 1,100 here. It was 1,100 across the board. I did stagger these up for larger families. We do occasionally have the family of 6 or 7 that come in that just from reviewing their cases, want to make sure that we can give them a little more adequate support. And then same with food and gas, I increased those as well to make, because those are very common things that people come in. We actually have, I'd say at least half of our assistance clients come in asking for food vouchers, gas vouchers, and sundries. So to make that go a little further, I've increased those as well. So that's just an overview. I wanted to give you guys all a summary of what the changes are. And I will send these over to you, Bob, for the record. They just need to be entered into the
Thank you.
minutes as to make them official. And Laura has them in her possession also, and she'll start using them on April 1st. So I just want to ask if anyone has any questions or would like me to discuss any of that differently or further.
Mary Jo, I just wanted to point out maybe a clarification.
Sure.
Under page, the emergency assistance, attachment A, we've seen these multiple times, but I think just in moving forward, noting that the income eligibility is by month, I don't really see that noted in that attachment A. I know that that's what you mean, right? This isn't our first time seeing this, but I think just in terms of an artifact or for documentation to indicate there that first table reflects a monthly income. I'm understanding that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yes. Okay. So just an observation. Otherwise, I think, I appreciate all the work you've done on this over the years, and I really like these changes you're making. I think are substantial and will, continue to provide the assistance that we need to for our township residents. So thank you.
Yep.
Mary Jo, I have a quick question for you. This is John DeCanto.
Hey, John. So it's unusual. It would not typically be something we would open up for public comment now, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. Go ahead. I just wanted to note
Are you
that.
sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Can you just clarify, you mentioned before that the general assistance guidelines are based on state guidelines,
The public
and then
aid code.
public aid code. And then can you just clarify your ability to change some of these guidelines, raise the 200% of poverty level? Is that different than what you were talking about before?
No, those are the guidelines that I have control over. There's the two programs, GA and EA. For GA, that's controlled, how you qualify is controlled completely by public aid code. So that's the state law that governs that, and the townships are kind of the conduit for allowing GA to be processed. The only thing in GA that we really have control over is the amount of stipend or grant that's awarded to a client. On emergency assistance, where you can come in once every 12 months for assistance, there we have a little bit more authority to set the maximum income level, as well as the grant amount and how we distribute that through vouchers. That's where we have control over. And then emergency assistance is governed by a manual that's put together to ensure that we're compliant with the township code and state codes around assistance, and make sure that we're not doing any kind of duplication of effort or duplication of funds. Because there's so many assistance programs that kind of work together. But that's how we ensure that we're checking all the boxes and make sure that there's no duplication. So the things that we have control over for emergency assistance are those income limits and the amount of grant awarded. Does that help, John?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep. So with that, I will move us to reports of elected officials. Ed, do you want to go first?
Sure. It's a long winter. I say that every year. We received our salt finally. We got 800 ton, and stockpile looks pretty normal now. The restrictions on Plank Road that we were talking about before for weight limits is now finalized. We had a public hearing. We got approval from the county. We got a new front end loader this past week. If you saw it, if you were in the township, people were driving it around the township too fast for the conditions, but nonetheless, it's really safe. And that's about all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, how about you?
Thank you. 2121 Ogden Avenue. At the present time, we are tentatively scheduled to move in on April 1st. We are, they are going to be putting flooring in starting tomorrow and then through the weekend. They're also going to be finishing supposedly the plumbing this weekend. And it looks like we're going in the right direction to hit that April 1st deadline. What I'd like to do at this particular point is kind of go back and kind of recap where we were and where we are. This is going to be for the assessor's office. I'm not a voting member of this board, and the actions have to be initiated through the supervisor and the board. We were in a pretty stressful situation, moving as much as we had. Our seniors were frustrated, as well as other people that were utilizing our services because they didn't know where we were. You know, at times I felt like Waldo and Where's Waldo? Inheriting a mold infested building that had a ridiculous water consumption problem would not be on anybody's list of wants. But it was our current township supervisor that led the charge by engaging experts to establishing reliable estimates according to multiple plausible scenarios. We then went out to the public and had public meetings throughout Lisle Township. We made presentations at each of the meetings, as well as distributed questionnaires to get the reaction of the public. She again presented all the information at our annual meeting, concluding with a vote of the electors to support a rent with the option to buy scenario. That's exactly what she did. It's been a privilege to work with you, Mary Jo, as well as the entire board to follow the directives voted on by the electors. I can tell you the process was not easy. Coordinating 5 moves in 5 years is very stressful. However, whatever obstacle was thrown in front of us, and there were many, we followed the directives of the electors. I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank Mary Jo and this board for their thorough attention to this situation and their commitment to solve the problem. It is my hope that the adjoining campus selection, ease of access, and design will be welcomed by seniors as well as others utilizing our services. It has been a long journey, and it could not have been done without the cooperative, collaborative actions of Mary Jo and this entire board. I thank you one and all for all that you've done.
Thank you, John.
Very good. Nice, John.
Appreciate that. But like you said,
April 1st is move-in day.
Hopefully.
You'll have to let us know. I'd love to stop by and see it. I guess I didn't fully track 5 moves in 5 years. Kudos to your staff, John.
I think that was part of it is, you know, John got kind of kicked out of his last office and they moved him over to one of the other offices in that building or in that complex. So that's one of them is he got kicked across the parking lot. Well, thank you, John.
Thank you.
For my office, I mentioned earlier that we're looking at alternatives for IT services. We just started that process. We've known that this was something that would be on our radar because the person who currently offers it would retire at some point. It's just one of those things where he's probably, we don't know for sure, he's probably evaluating his options right now. So we can go with a similar situation where we have an individual who is on call to support us or evaluate managed IT services. And there's a lot of work we need to do around IT in the township. We are hitting the point where we need a refresh of our server systems and our hardware. So it seemed like a good time to really engage with somebody who offers managed services and help them have them do an assessment and really come up with an overall plan to make us more secure, to update and modernize our equipment and our systems, ensure that we're also very fully mobile now so that we can access remotely with ease should we be in a situation like this again. So we did have a conversation with Impact, who is currently our printer services provider. And just to get the ball rolling, find out kind of like start doing our due diligence around this. So Bob and I and Bill actually had a discussion with Jennifer and one of the IT people at Impact, and kind of got the process down that it'll be an assessment that has a cost associated, but they dig into every system. They, really comb through everything and identify any vulnerabilities, weaknesses, age of equipment, and come up with a full plan for what we need, as well as how to support us in the future. The cost for the assessment that they offer is $5,000, which means that we will have to get another quote to be compliant with our purchasing policy. So that'll be something we bring in the future. And then once we have the assessment, we can start to evaluate what our options are for the overall services for a long-term solution for IT. But this is kind of the first step. So I just wanted to this all happened like in the last week. So just wanted to give you guys a quick brief on what we're starting to work on and what will be something to be evaluated more in the future. Vaccinations have started with our staff, which is exciting. We have a couple of people who have already had their first shot, and our food pantry folks are all currently registered and waiting to hear back still, from what I understand from talking to Charlie. I don't think anyone's gotten the call yet. But I did find out this morning, I heard some information that was from kind of through the chain from the health department, that they're getting a pretty significant supply coming in right now. So the fairgrounds location is going to start really picking up and offering a lot more appointments. So hopefully they start actually getting more people vaccinated more quickly through the county services. So it feels like we're kind of on the edge of really trying to push through and get that whole process will be going quicker. But we do have a couple of people who have gotten their first vaccination. So that was really a relief. The CARES Act IGA period performance just wrapped up at the end of February. So all expenses associated with that will be submitted. I'm trying to get every last piece in this week that is part of this audit. That was a February expense. So we'll get that in. And then just one random thing that just kind of came up in the last month through our intergovernmental work within the village of Lisle. The village has their bike path committee that's been proposing some work for a while. The executive director from the park district, Dan Garvey, me, and Eric Ertmode from the village have had a couple conversations about the ComEd right-of-way portion of the proposed bike path. And we're just kind of evaluating what would it look like to have to work with ComEd on that segment of bike path, because I've done some work with ComEd and that can be a thing. It's like when you're working in the right of way, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. So we had a call with ComEd where they laid out that whole process for us. And we talked a bit about some of the environmental concerns and potential flooding concerns in their right of way. But it was an interesting conversation, and we're going to continue to have this conversation, it sounds like, between our entities. I told them, like, I don't think we really have authority to manage this. This isn't something we can jump in and manage. The park district probably is the more appropriate entity there. But I can help. Like, I do have had experience working within this area. So if I can be of some help in this, I'm happy to. So that's just one of the kind of random things that came out of our intergovernmental work in the last month. So that's all I have for the team. Too many windows open. Okay. And that'll bring us to other business. For other business, I know we do want to try and look at calendars and set our special meeting for the discussion on mental health recommendations. Do you guys want to take a look at that?
Tuesday the 23rd, Mary Jo?
Tuesday the 23rd?
Yeah.
That's an option.
Or Monday the 22nd, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, either works for me. Does anyone have any conflicts for either the 22nd Monday or 23rd, which is Tuesday?
No, I've made myself available for either.
Okay.
Yeah, those are good.
Both work for me too.
Okay.
I'm free
I'd
either
like
day as well.
What was that, Mike?
I'd like to add something when I can.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, after 8+ years serving as a Lisle Township trustee, I'd like to say to all the residents and taxpayers of Lisle Township that it has been an honor to serve them. And to all you elected officials and their prospective staffs, it had also been an honor and a pleasure working with you on behalf of our Lisle Township residents. And I wish you all the best of luck in the future. It's been an honor serving with you all. Thank you.
Well, Mike, you got a couple more meetings in you.
Well, I didn't realize that, but I wanted to get this out there in case I didn't have another chance.
You will definitely be in the minutes, Mike. We really appreciate it. It's been we've all enjoyed serving with you as well. And your depth of knowledge of the community is just remarkable and appreciated, and your attention to the board and the personal friendship that's come out of it is also very appreciated as well, Mike. And to Sean and Kathy, who aren't running as well, no matter the results of the election, this board will be missed. You know, whether I'm a part of the future or not, this has been, of the boards, this has been really fun, if not surprising at the very beginning. Bunch of relationships and definitely worked very, very well. So I don't know what else to say. So
Mike, I just want to thank you for your mentorship and your guidance and showing me the ropes as a trustee. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. I'll miss all you guys. Believe me, I'll miss you dearly. But I'll still be around. I ain't going away.
Yeah, I agree too. I want to thank all you guys too, and good luck with everybody for the future and whatever happens in upcoming elections. And yeah, this board's been incredible, and all of you guys have shown nothing but class and respect, and you really, represent the community very well. So it's been a very, very good 4 years.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
I would echo all of that. I'm hoping that we have a chance maybe for a last in-person, as Bob noted. We do have a couple meetings left, but Mike Reedy, you kind of set the standard for being a trustee when I joined, and again, your mentorship has been amazing to me. And Sean, I've enjoyed our time together at the table as well. I will miss everyone. And John, I think it kind of struck me when you said 5 years and 5 moves. I mean, it just kind of sums up the whole experience I've had on this board, is that, there have been a lot of challenges, but this is a very cooperative board. And it's my hope that those who sit at the table in the future will bring that cooperative spirit to this table, because I think that that's what ultimately supports our residents and has supported both you and Ed in your roles here as well. So again, I hope we have a final chance to see each other and thank each other, but it's been an honor to serve with everyone.
I just want to take one moment to say thank you to all of the board members. It's been a pleasure, as everybody said, to work with each and every one of you. You have all been supportive of not only of the road district, but of the township in general. I can't believe that all of you came together and crossed the aisle to say what is best for the township every meeting. And for all of you, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. So I will look at probably the 23rd, if that works for everybody. Sounded like that was okay for the special meeting. Thank you, everyone, for kind words. It's weird that we're in March of 21 already. I don't know how that happened, but that will bring us to the audit. I will ask if there's a motion to go to audit.
What time on the 23rd?
Good point. Is 7 okay? We'll do a little earlier than normal, but do 7 for.
I'm good with 7. I just want to, wait, what time?
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Was that Tony's? Did you start making it, or was that Mike?
That was Mike.
Okay.
And I second.
Okay, cool. Any discussion on going to audit? Hearing none, I'll ask Bob to take the roll call.
Senior Trustee Reedy.
Yes.
Trustee Chapman.
Yes.
Trustee Allen,
Yes.
Trustee Signorella,
Yes.
Supervisor Mullen.
Yes. And I'll ask if there's a motion to approve the audit.
I move to approve the audit.
A second.
Any questions or discussion on the audit itself? Hearing none, I will once again ask Bob to take the roll call.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
Trustee Chapman,
Yes.
Trustee Allen,
Yes.
Trustee Signorella,
Yes.
Supervisor Mullen.
Yes.
Okay.
There's no executive session this evening. And that brings us to, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Once again, Bob.
Trustee Reedy,
Yes.
Trustee Chapman,
Yes.
Trustee Allen,
Yes.
Trustee Signorella,
Yes.
Supervisor Mullen.
Yes. Thank you all. 8:42, we're adjourned. Y'all have a great night.